Hi again, everyone. Today we're going to take up an interesting discussion. Indirect objects, odd beasts. This is following on the heels of our complements video of last week, because these items, indirect objects, are often lumped into the category of complements. But I'm here today to challenge that thinking and help us see them clearly and discover what they really are. Well, what are they? Well, first of all, in terms of parts of speech, they're always nouns or pronouns. They're part of the predicate, but are they true complements like direct objects, predicate nominatives, or predicate adjectives? Many textbooks will list them in the same chapter as these other items and talk about them as though that's what they were. But the answer is no, they are not. Believe it or not, direct objects are adverbs. It's going to shock some of you because you're wondering, how in the world can a noun or a pronoun be an adverb? Well, let's take a look. Let's compare these two sentences. Indirect objects. When we drill down closer, we can see how they really work. He gave the ball to me. Now there's a phrase without an indirect object. Instead, we have a prepositional phrase. But doesn't it mean the same thing as sentence number 2? He gave me the ball. He gave the ball to me. He gave me the ball. They do. They're the same in meaning. Well, why then the two different forms? How did we get there? Let's diagram sentence 1 as our way of identifying what's going on. Who's the subject? What's going on? He is the subject. What's going on is he gave. Pardon me as I write backhanded here. It's not going to be quite as clear as forehanded, but let's take a look at this together. He gave what? He gave ball. Isn't that correct? Gave what ball? The ball. And in what direction did he give it? He gave it to or toward me. So we have a prepositional phrase, an adverbial prep phrase, modifying the verb give, telling us direction. He gave the ball to me. Straightforward, we understand that sentence. What's going on in this one? Well, it means the same thing. How would we draw it out? He, again, is the one doing the action. The action is giving, or past tense, gave. He gave what? Again, he gave ball. Gave what? Gave ball. That means ball in both cases is what? Ball is the direct object. Okay, direct object, direct object. Okay? He gave me the ball. Well, some diagrammers will have you put me out here on a second line, but that really does not, I believe, show correctly its form and function. What really we have here is the same thing as this, except we did not bother to say to. We dropped it out. Just as in the sentence, come, we've dropped out the subject, you. We really mean you, come. Here we mean he gave to me the ball. But we drop it and just say the object of the preposition. So here we have that one diagrammed out. He gave the ball to me, right? I forgot to put the. But when we wish to drop the preposition, we change the word orders, we'll talk about in a moment. We put the indirect object in front of the direct object, and voila, we have our sense with the indirect object. But what's really going on here? I mean, what is that all about? Well, the true nature of indirect objects is that they themselves are the objects of unstated prepositions. They're left over from what used to be a prep phrase. Therefore, by the way, since they're objects, if the indirect object happens to be a pronoun, it needs to be in the object case because it's the object of a preposition. Him, not he, her, not she, etc. They function as adverbs. Why? Because they're the last remnants of an adverbial prep phrase that has been shortened. As language has evolved, sometimes rather than say the whole prep phrase, we'll drop the preposition, move its object in front of the direct object, and it means the same thing. But it truly is a leftover prep phrase. It indicates, as an adverbial prep phrase, as any adverb would, the direction of an action or the reason or purpose for an action. These are the typical things that indirect objects tell us. And that's going to be a clue for us identifying them, because we can use these prepositions to or toward or for and test them in front of a word that we suspect is the indirect object. And if it works and makes sense, we know we found it. Let's try some examples where we may be able to see and do that. Okay? There's a couple words fall there, but that's all right. Indirect objects. First, let's talk about how to properly use them. First of all, you need to have a direct object before you can have an indirect object. They never occur alone. So they occur with transitive verbs that are at that time taking a direct object. Because as you know, transitive verbs don't always take direct objects. They can. The syntax is that it's placed in front of the direct object and all the direct object's modifiers, as in this sentence here. He bought me a large ice cream cone. Let's see if we can find it now using our diagnostic tools that are down here below, which we'll cover in a minute. He bought what? I'm asking verb what? Bought what? Bought me? I don't think so. I'm not for sale. He bought an ice cream cone. So this here is the direct object. And does it have a modifier? It does. Large and all tell me which or what kind of ice cream cone. So therefore, our indirect object here occurs, as I said, in front of the direct object and its modifiers. And the best way to find it, we just practiced one of them there, is to ask one of two or maybe both diagnostic questions. Ask verb what, as we did here, bought what? That will reveal the direct object. The answer to that will be the object of the verb. Or we can work the other way and try to preposition a to or a for in front of the noun we suspect of being the indirect object. In this case, we could have said, he bought for me a large ice cream cone. And if that works, then we know we've found the indirect object. Okay? Let's look at 3 example sentences and see if we can use our skills now to find the indirect objects using those diagnostic questions. Number 1, we bought ourselves some snacks. Interesting, this has a reflexive pronoun, ourselves. But who did what in this sentence? Didn't we buy? Yes. In fact, it's now a past event, so we would say we bought. What did we buy? Did we buy ourselves? No, that doesn't make sense. We bought what? Remember that diagnostic question. We bought snacks. So, again, to diagram it properly, we have a vertical line to separate the verb from its direct object, not a bisecting line that separates the subject from the verb. But we bought what? We bought snacks. And then further modified by some. Let's try our second diagnostic question, putting a to or a for in front of what we suspect as being the indirect object. We suspect that ourselves could be the indirect object because it's certainly not the direct object. We bought for ourselves some snacks. Does that work? Certainly it works. Now, if we were making that sentence from scratch, we might have put it at the end, we bought some snacks for ourselves, but there's nothing wrong with the sentence, we bought for ourselves some snacks. So that is the indirect object. The indirect object is ourselves, and if we were to diagram it, we would diagram it like so, where for is unstated. Oh boy, it's tough to write backhanded like this. And ourselves is the object of the preposition. Let me do a better job with that for there. Here we go, for. And in parentheses because it's not being said, for ourselves. All right, let's try sentence number 2. I gave my teacher the assignment. All right, diagnostic questions again. I gave what? Right, if we're going to diagram it out, I did some giving, right? I gave. Gave what? Did I give my teacher or did I give the assignment? Obviously, you're not going to give the teacher. You gave assignment. So, assignment. Which assignment? The assignment. So, we've taken care of our direct object here. By the way, snacks is our direct object up there. We suspect, therefore, that teacher must be the indirect object. Let's try our second diagnostic question. For or to. I gave to my teacher the assignment. Does that work? Sure it does. Again, like the last sentence, if we had created it as a full preposition, a sentence containing a full preposition, we probably would have thrown that in the back. I gave the assignment to my teacher, but there's nothing wrong with it positioned here. I gave to my teacher the assignment. So that's what we have. Again, a prep phrase. We gave what? To the teacher, but the to, whoops, that's an E. But the to is unstated. So I'm putting it inside of parentheses. I gave my teacher, and again I got to put my on that. It's a modifier of teacher. I gave my teacher the assignment. To is not stated. Final one, and this one's interesting because it it's a two-clause sentence. It's a complex sentence. Jim gave anyone who wanted it, sorry, that looks a little bit rubbed off, a chance. Jim gave anyone who wanted it a chance. All right, we know that Jim gave, right? No question about that. That's who's doing what. But to whom did he give? Jim gave. Well, better question is, what did he give? Jim gave what? Did he give anyone who wanted it, or did he give a chance? Clearly, he gave a chance. Let's try our second diagnostic question to see if it helps us. Jim gave to anyone who wanted it a chance. Does that work? We suspect that of being the IO. This whole thing, the indirect object, this whole clause, and it does work, doesn't it? Jim gave to anyone who wanted it a chance. So we've got our direct object and our indirect object. Yes, that does work. Well, how would we diagram it? Just for grins. Again, the to is unstated. So it would go in parentheses like that. And what we have here is an entire clause. Okay? We get to anyone. Okay? And then we have connected, and there's not really room to draw it here, but you have a dotted line going down to another subordinate clause, who wanted it. I should stack that beneath it, but there's no room on this board. But that's what we're talking about there. Which anyone? The anyone who wanted it. So there we have it. Those two diagnostic questions are the key. Verb what, and then placing a to or for in front of the suspected indirect object. And hopefully now you can see a way in which indirect objects make a little more sense. They're not the object of the verb. They are directing the action in a direction or for a purpose. They are the remnants of adverbial prepositional phrases. So the objects of those prepositions. Hope that helps. We'll see you again next time.